Recently, the YouTuber Vaush claimed that a number of prominent Marxist theorists and revolutionaries would have voted for corporate Democrat Joe Biden in order to stop Trump and the Republicans. Now, although the central argument of that video was destroyed by Comrade Hakim, I think some of the other points Vaush made were quite interesting, especially relating to reformism.
Did you know Marx actually believed it was possible to achieve socialism peacefully through democracy and through voting? A quote from him in his La Liberté speech. You know that the institutions, mores, and traditions of various countries must be taken into consideration, and we do not deny that there are countries, such as America, England, and if I were more familiar with your institutions, I would perhaps also add Holland, where the workers can attain their goal by peaceful means. That being the case, we must also recognize the fact that in most countries on the continent, the lever of our revolution must be force. It is force to which we must one day appeal in order to erect the rule of labor.
This is true. Marx and Engels did believe it was possible for socialism to be achieved through peaceful means. In 1880, towards the end of his life, Marx helped French socialists draw up the program of the French Workers' Party. In the preamble of the program, which Marx almost exclusively drew up himself, it is stated that the ultimate aim of the movement is to liberate the productive class, the working class, and collectivize the means of production. However, the immediate demands were quite mild. The economic section of the document promoted the establishment of a minimum wage, the legal reduction of the working day, aka the 8-hour day, social help for the elderly and the sick, universal free education for children, a legal prohibition of bosses employing foreign workers at a wage less than that of French workers, and other similar measures. Now, according to Marx, the economic section consisted solely of demands that had risen out of the labour movement itself. Had he given up on socialism? Of course not. Socialism was still the aim, but these provisions, under capitalism, could be implemented immediately. So by supporting such a party, the workers would immediately benefit. Now, some socialists criticize these measures. For example, the French socialist Jules Guerd, who had actually contributed to the platform, believed that these reforms were too mild, and the rejection of them would convince the working class that the 1789-style revolution was basically the only way to achieve emancipation. How did Marx react to Guerd? Well, Marx revolutionary phrase-mongering, and stated, "What is certain is that if they are Marxists, then I, myself, am not a Marxist." So it is clear that Marx himself believed that these reforms that promised immediate benefits would help build a strong workers' movement, and I think he was proven right. Many parties led by workers were able to build mass movements due to these promises. Just look at the Sanders campaign in the US. His mild promises, such as Medicare for all, a minimum wage, more labor rights, helped build an interest in left-wing politics, and yes, contributed to a renewed interest in Marx and Marxism. So therefore, in capitalist plutocrat nations, leftists should take advantage of opportunities we have to make our case, even if the system is rigged against us. Does this mean Marxist-Leninists are wrong? Not at all. The material conditions in countries like Russia made the development of a mass working-class movement impossible. To quote Lenin in his famous essay, "What is to be done?" everyone will probably agree that broad democratic principles presuppose the two following conditions. First, full publicity, and second, elections to all offices. It would be absurd to speak about democracy without publicity. That is, publicity that is not limited to the membership of the organization, because all it does is done publicly. Even its party congresses are held in public, but no one would call democratic an organization that is hidden from everyone but its members by a veil of secrecy. What is the use, then, of advancing broad democratic principles when the fundamental condition for these principles cannot be fulfilled by a secret organization? An excellent point. How can you build popular support if you are forced to hide in the shadows by an oppressive and violent state? Now, of course, Most of you would know that Marx and Engels were extremely supportive of workers' revolutions. Indeed, Marx described the first workers' revolution, the Paris Commune, as, quote, the dawn of the great social revolution which will liberate mankind from the regime of classes forever, end quote. As for Vaush, I can understand why he wants people to vote for Biden. Indeed, if I lived in the US, I would vote for Biden for the sole purpose of removing Trump and his mad supporters from office. But I would never claim that Marx, Engels, Lenin, Mao and the others he mentioned would support such a decision. Still, I think there is a lot at stake at this election. If Trump wins, the right will be in control of the Supreme Court for decades, which means no universal healthcare, no action on climate change, and weaker trade unions. If you choose not to vote for Biden because of his terrible record, I understand. But you should consider what is at stake if Trump wins another term. Thanks for watching.